The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, Monday Night Raw, Review.
Hello and welcome to another great Raw review from Wrestling to the Max. And of course, this is the February 5th, 2018 edition. And I, of course, am Gary Vaughan. Along with me is your host, Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And Paul, we've got a Raw that is full of different interesting facts because they are really trying to get us pumped up from Elimination Chamber. Lots of different storylines are kind of shaking out here. So I'm excited about this Raw. I don't know about you, but man, it seems like they have got this course on strong.
I'm just more shocked that it's February already. Like, where is time going?
You're not lying on that, man. It just seems like it was Christmas like 2 weeks ago, and it's been longer than that, dude. So, yeah, I'm a little shocked as well. So I can't wait to jump into this Raw, though, because we do have a lot of interesting things to talk about. But before we get into that, I want people to know a couple things. First of all, if you like this review show or any of other great review shows or just Wrestling to the Max in general, make sure you go to W2Mnet.com. That's, of course, the place where you go find everything wrestling. Of course, there's other things there. But when it comes to wrestling, we have so much to offer, so many great other podcasts. So you want to go check those out. There are great review shows that we have to offer. They're outstanding, and you don't want to miss a minute of the action. So please go to W2Mnet.com, as well as go subscribe, rate, and review over at Wrestling to the Max or the W2M Network, whatever one you choose. You'll get great content. You'll get a lot of interesting things when it comes to podcasting that you're not going to want to miss because there's just so much out there to check out. Plus, don't forget to go rate and review, and when you go subscribe, because when you do all three of those things, you help us, you help yourself, and man, it's just a good time all around. And also, give some big love to our friends over at 411mania.com and lastwordonprowrestling.com. They have some great content too, so we don't want to miss their stuff, because trust me, some great articles come out of both those sites that just are so great. Really, really appreciate all that they do for us. But yeah, Paul, I think it's time for us to jump into this episode of Raw.
Let's do so. And as you said at the top, Gary, lots of elimination chamber stuff even happening on this show. We open with Bray Wyatt talking about a match that he's going to have with Roman Reigns tonight, which is the very first thing right after this, too, which is kind of interesting because I can't really remember the last time we opened with a wrestling match on Raw. And we have Roman and Bray battle it out for about 15 minutes before Reigns ends up fighting off Sister Abigail for a second time, hits a spear, 1, 2, 3. He's on his way to the chamber, Gary.
Yeah, this is not a shocking, explosive, breaking news moment for everybody because, well, when you saw this matchup, you already penciled in Roman Reigns. That's okay. And the reason that's okay is for the fact that I think this match actually gave you some great moments. I really appreciated the fact that they let Bray Wyatt look like Bray Wyatt again. He actually felt like he mattered, Paul. Mm-hmm. That made me happy. Very, very happy. Not only that, this was a clean win for Roman Reigns. This was no shenanigans from Broken Matt or Woken Matt Hardy. Nothing like that. This was all about two guys out there battling it out, trying to get that spot in the Elimination Chamber. And there were several times in this match where, really honestly, Bray Wyatt looked like he was taking it home and going to head to that chamber. I thoroughly appreciated that Bray Wyatt looked good. And it made me okay with Roman Reigns winning.
I think this is just a smart matchup really on paper. These are two guys who have a ton of experience working against each other. They have good chemistry. And Reigns, I think he always comes out of these looking pretty good. And you're right. I think Bray really got a nice shine here, especially since really his last month and a half has been mostly talking and wrestling for maybe 10 minutes. And of course they touch on the Woken Matt Hardy feud again with Matt showing up in the post-match and hitting Bray with an old twist of fate. So, letting you know at least that that's not all over. And, I think you're right, too. you're looking at this, as soon as it's announced the winner of this is facing Brock at Mania, you already know Roman Reigns is in this. Like, it's just a gimme at this point. The free space on the bingo card.
Exactly. That's definitely the truth there. And I will say, too, we're sitting here kind of, well, at least for sure I am, kind of bragging about the fact that I feel like, they made Wyatt look really good here. Mm-hmm. This helps Woken Matt Hardy, and I really think this helps that feud to matter, because if this is all about gimmick, people are going to kind of keep their expectations low. Your thought process on their match, hopefully at WrestleMania, very, very low. I think this helps a lot, because now I feel like, hey, if Wyatt can compete with Roman, who's going to be in the headline position at WrestleMania most likely, that makes me feel better about him. And I think they'll do the same for Woken Matt Hardy. I think they're going to give him some spectacular matches probably on this road to WrestleMania, and I think that's really going to help their feud.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree entirely. Fast forwarding through the evening, we have The Miz taking on Apollo Crews in your second elimination qualifier match. You have Miz cut another wonderful promo ahead of the match, talking about how this is going to be his year and all this other great stuff. And, of course, also claims to be the inspiration for the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, which I could believe, Gary. The Miz inspires me every day. So. Oh,
I agree. I mean, I think if Doug Peterson really did do this, it definitely works, and I'm going to use it in my everyday life. So I'm going to start playing Miz promos before I go to work. Before I do anything, I'm just going to play the Miz promo. Then I'm going to feel better about myself. It's right up there with DDP yoga.
Exactly. Scientifically proven to work every day. Of course, The Miz is facing Apollo Crews, so you already know how this is going. Miz wins about 5.5 minutes or so. I don't know if those tag wins are necessarily helping Apollo look like he's really able to compete with guys like this, but I thought he looked good in this, and that's important too.
I think so. I really feel like they did a good here with him as well. I mean, I think, Apollo Crews and Bray, you could kind of give them a little love here, and they did just that. I think for the fact that, it's a shorter match for a reason, but Apollo getting some of the offense he got, it makes you do care about him, and we figure that he is, at least a little bit on the same level as some of these other guys, because for a long time there, we just kind of looked at Apollo as such a low-card guy that really he was just there just kind of for show. Now, they've actually been involving him in matches like this that actually matter. They have a point. I'll say this. I'm happy that at least Apollo is getting a little bit more time on TV and a little bit more time to show the offense that he has. Right. Once again, Miz, you already penciled it in. You knew Miz was not going to lose this match. Mm-hmm. So, but still happy for Apollo.
I agree. Yeah, I don't think he's been able to do the UHA combination since he's got on live TV for the main shows. And, of course, that's the standing moonsault shooting star press combo that he does. And why wouldn't you let this guy flip around? That's what's so impressive about him, is not only how just physically imposing he looks, but the dude can just fly circles around you too. And why wouldn't you want to accentuate that every chance you get,
I agree. And, we got later on, we'll talk more about this, but we got a little bit of word that there'll be some people in that 205 Live cruiserweight tournament that are not normally there. I really question Apollo would be a guy that I'd love to see in that, because he can do all those great things. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But at least he's getting more time on Raw. That's what I'm happy about.
Clearly, he's not 205, Gary.
I know, but I just wish that they would do that. I wish they'd let him do something where he could fly around. I don't think he could win, though, because those cruiserweights are great, and they could probably shock the system a little bit there too. So
I see what you did there.
Yeah, I know, right? I just got
to. So we also learned throughout the evening that they're going to have a match between the three people who have already qualified for the match at Elimination Chamber. That's John Cena, Elias, and Braun Strowman. They're going to face off in the main event in a triple threat match to see who will come out last in the Chamber match, which I kind of question why you would do it so early without having everybody qualified and giving everybody the chance, but clearly we're playing favorites. So, this is fine, right? Elias ends up stealing the pin after Strowman kills Cena. I like Elias getting the nod here. I kind of like him getting some heel heat. Braun, of course, comes in and just starts killing everybody in the post-match, which is what he does. This is fine, right? I don't know if it's anything like super important, but here it is.
Yeah, and, let's just be honest. Braun doesn't need that last spot. He just doesn't. It doesn't feel right. No one would really be excited to have Braun being the last guy out of the pod. So, saying that, I really did feel like it was between Cena or Elias, and I'll be honest, kind of thought that Cena was going to sneak the victory, especially since they kind of focused on him a little bit here. Now, these guys, all three, kind of got their spot on Raw to kind of give their reason why they should be the guy, right? But I really felt that John Cena's was pretty good, and I really felt like that was the direction they were going. They didn't. Elias got it, and I'm happy with it. Elias is a guy that I think has really gotten over well with the crowd. He's somebody that I think that needs this spot. And I think it's going to work out great in Elimination Chamber because he's going to sit there and strum his guitar until his turn.
Exactly. And I think that you can really play a story with Braun being first in the match. So I think this is going to work out pretty well. I don't know if Cena necessarily needed the last spot, especially with them trying to tell the story of him struggling to. I guess I shouldn't say struggling, doubting himself, whether he can still get to that main event spot at WrestleMania, whether he can still, really compete with the people going on in WWE right now. So I think this plays into that as well very nicely. And, of course, Elias getting the cheap win, that's going to help him too. So.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, this was an okay main event. I'm not going to say it was great. It really was kind of centered around what Braun was doing, right? So,
right. Yeah.
As much as we love Braun, I think sometimes I kind of feel to myself and think to myself, okay, I get it. This guy is super strong. He's doing all this. So I'm not saying it's annoying, but I'm just saying it's something I've seen so much that it's not as entertaining as I would like it to be. At least Elias winning kind of got you that little pop moment. So there it is.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so on the other side of the Elimination Chamber spectrum, Kurt Angle announces the participants for the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Very curious, of course, that they're not going to have qualifiers, but maybe they just don't have a big enough roster to do that. So, straight up, it's just Alexa Bliss, Bayley, Mandy Rose, Mickie James, Sonya Deville, Sasha Banks, all in the chamber together. Interesting that Nia is being left off here, but I am assuming that is playing into whatever story they're trying to tell with these two. Angle says that Nia is going to be facing Asuka at Elimination Chamber, and if she wins, she'll get added to the women's title match with Asuka. I'm supposing somewhere down the road, because I don't think Asuka is even picked yet. I think they're just assuming it's Raw, right?
Yeah, I think that's the case.
So, Bliss, however, doesn't think that this whole thing is fair. She's having to defend her championship in the chamber, and Brock isn't. All this other stuff, and it's a very well-reasoned argument, all that. Angle, however, goes, you know what? You haven't defended your title since October, so I don't really want to hear it. She calls Angle a sexist. So Angle's like, you know what? I'll just poll the audience, and they all support everything that Angle's doing here as Bliss walks away in a storm of rage.
I think this really does have some common sense to it. Because she has a point there about Brock not having to defend, and of course, Kurt's comeback is very true too. My God, that's a long time to not have to defend your title.
Yeah.
Jeez. Oof. And I wonder how many people really get a chance to do that. Not many. Mm-hmm. So she's been very lucky on that front. So I think overall, this was good. This explains something to the crowd, or especially to the smart marks who are sitting there asking all these same questions, right? So I think that's the biggest positive I get out of this. Other than that, it's okay. Nothing that was overly grand or anything. I just think it kind of explains things a little bit further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. We'll touch back on what's going on with Alexa here in a little bit too, but I need to rewind first. Because we see Sasha Banks seeing footage of her loss to Asuka last week and how she's kind of upset about it. And that's when Bayley shows up, and we continue to tease out this sort of splintering of the friendship very, very slowly. Bayley is trying to get Sasha to sort of ease up on herself since Asuka's, she's the toughest chick on the roster, all this other stuff. Banks, however, believes that she can still beat Asuka, and this eventually leads to them talking about how Bayley was eliminated by Sasha at the Rumble, and they both want to win the Chamber and all this other stuff, and the prize for them doesn't even seem to be the women's title. It's beating Asuka, which I think is sort of neat. That everybody's sort of already overlooking Alexa. Like, Asuka's going to kill her already. It's just known. It's just a fact.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that because it seems like that Asuka is the prize where you would think, that championship belt that Alexa holds would be that big prize. And I understand. I get why, and I think it's kind of a really special thing. And not only that, the way that Asuka is presented on Raw, it's awesome because I'll be honest with you, Paul, never expected them to push her this far. I really did not. I kind of thought that Vince or whoever's backstage would start to kind of sour on the fact that she can't cut a 10-minute promo. They would just be like, well, she can maybe say a few words in English, so let's just kind of very slowly ease her down the food chain. That's not happening, Paul. They really seem like they care. They're giving her these video packages. I love when they feed into the match that they have tonight, that they kind of make that a special little video thing that they did. So my point there is I'm right there with you, man. I totally agree. This is the prize, beating Asuka, and I think it just, to me, it makes her feel so much better.
I agree. I think the really interesting thing that you brought up there too is still the presentation, right? And it's not because she's getting it over on promos, it's because she's reacting I think so well in the ring to what the crowd is giving. Like, she's getting loud reactions, really, I think, wherever they go. It's not just smarky towns like Philly. I don't know if I should really consider Houston a smarky town or not, but she was getting great reactions at Survivor Series. Like, everybody seems to be into what she's doing, and I think that's really, really great for her, especially for not having to talk. Like, it's awesome.
Yeah, you're right on that point, and I think it was kind of cool too is the fact that it's something that has been, I think, really kind of avoided really for the most part. When it comes to the women's division, I think they've kind of throw people out there in that division and see what falls, and then just change it right up from underneath you. They never really give anything a lot of time in the women's division. Now, Asuka's different, though. They've kind of stayed with this whole thing since she's been on the main roster, and hopefully they're learning something here.
I agree. Especially the long story with Asuka, I think it's going to be much more interesting, other than what she's doing in the short term, which should still be cool if she does go on to win the championship, of course. Fast forwarding a little bit further back into the evening, we come to Asuka taking on Bayley. A little north of 10 minutes here before Asuka gets Bayley to tap to the Asuka lock, in the armbar, which there's a lot of thought that maybe they're building up Asuka using the armbar to build up to a match with Ronda Rousey down the line, because that's Ronda's move and all this other stuff. What's important here, however, Asuka wins. She shakes hands with Bayley afterwards, proving to be a good sport. And obviously Bayley, being Asuka's first big foil in NXT, brought up a lot here too.
Yeah, and that is something that I feel like was really cool to see, because I never really thought they would bring that up. I'm so glad they did. And for the interaction we have between Bayley and Sasha, and they're because you've alluded to this plenty of times, and I'm just going to go back to what you've said, and it's coming true, of Bayley and Sasha Banks feuding and having this big thing take place. I think that you started to see some of that smoke, and of course their conversation. So that leads us into this match against Asuka, and Bayley is trying to prove herself, trying to prove that she is better than Sasha Banks, and everything that she's doing in this, she's really, honestly, more aggressive than usual. I felt like I thought that she competed very well up against someone who really is a killer in Asuka. So I think it was good. They got time. That's another thing. I got some good time here, and the match wasn't better though. than Sasha Banks and Asuka. I really felt like this one was maybe a step below, maybe, or a half step below. It wasn't terrible. Not complaining about it. I just didn't feel like it was on the same level as what we got last week. Still good. Mm-hmm. And it still gave Asuka the victory, which is the most important thing. And Bayley did almost get the victory. I mean, they did a rewind on that, too. So I think all this works out in favor of Asuka. And I think also for Sasha and Bayley. I think it kind of moves us forward with what they're going to do in the future.
I completely agree. I don't know if Asuka and Bayley ever really clicked, in my opinion. They still had good matches, right? Because they're still both they're good workers. They know what they're doing in there. But I agree with you. I think this was sort of a cut below what we got last week with Asuka and Sasha. However, I would still say this was better than what we got in the main event. So, just to sort of, I guess, put it in perspective.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Because the main event, like you said, is as quality as some of the stuff before, including this match. So I get that. But, I think we kind of see where you're coming from too when people watch this match compared to last week. It just seems like they just are really never on that same page. They're in the ring together, they're doing a good job, but they're just not right there where they need to be. So
yeah, I agree. Fast forwarding some more through the evening, sticking with the women, Nia Jax squashes Vanessa Floyd. The post match is the important match here, though. She cuts a promo on Asuka saying that she is not afraid of her and believes that she is the only one that can beat her. So once again, it's not even about the women's title anymore. It's about beating Asuka, which is really cool, even though it does maybe devalue the title a little. I will say that. Larry, however, brings up a good point that she did end up walking away from Asuka back in January. So clearly, it's a little smoke and mirror here for Nia.
Yeah, it really, really is. And, I think, what we get is what you expect here. And I think it's going to be kind of interesting, kind of how they take Nia down this road, because it seems like that she's in this division, she's doing things, but I don't know. They did this to her in NXT, right? They made her feel important, but yet she always was on the side and never really got to be the center of attention. And so I'm really kind of curious. I still feel that way even in this episode of Raw as we go, because, hey, you could take on Asuka or you could take on whoever and be victorious. But at the same point, she really never feels more important, even though she's squashing people like, this young lady that no one knows. Mm-hmm.
It's, in NXT, you could make an argument, right? Asuka got there. She's on the rise. You have the big threat, Nia. Asuka overcomes. Blah, blah, blah. And so, Nia gets brought up. Would a lot of people would probably argue too soon, even though I think she's sort of found her way. And we're back in that same situation, right? It's all about Asuka again, and sort of everybody else, even the champion, is sort of on the back burner a little. It's a very interesting situation, I think, they got percolating over here.
I think so too. I mean, you got to give them credit though, right? They're still giving Nia Jax time, even if it's just squash matches. So obviously she's in the plans. Right. It's just like you said. This Asuka thing is really kind of overshadowing everybody, and I mean, I can't say that I'm sad about that because we're big Asuka fans here, but I still feel like Nia. Man, she just feel a little empathy for her. I'll just say it that way.
Yeah. I mean, this is somebody who they sort of teased a lot of big pushes for since she's gotten here, and it's not really paying out for her yet. So, right after this, we have Sonya Deville taking on Mickie James. You have Paige and Mandy Rhodes at ringside with her. Still, of course, Absolution being somewhat of a thing. And Deville sort of dominates here until James gets in a few little bits here or there, but ends up getting sort of the surprise roll-up out of nowhere in about 3.5 minutes or so. Mickie gets the beatdown from Absolution in the post-match, but here comes Alexa Bliss to come and save her old friend as James is sort of completely flabbergasted as Bliss sort of helps her to the back. So, I like this. This is really cool. Bliss sort of playing up on old relationships, even though this one got flushed down pretty quickly when they both moved to Raw. But now, you got to line up your ducks in a row, especially since Alexa's trying to find friends to help her get out of that chamber with the belt.
Yep, that's exactly what your thought process is coming out of this, and I think it's smart booking, if you ask me. I think it's great because, when you see earlier in the night the way Alexa is kind of shut down by Kurt Angle, you kind of think, okay, well, never. And then when she does this, you kind of, oh, now I get it. Now I see where she. And to me, it makes all the sense in the world. I'm happy with it. And for what, they did here, you still have to give Absolution some time, and they did. I was kind of concerned that they weren't. They did give Absolution that time, and you have Sonya Deville, once again, get ring time. And I think that's very, very important for someone who really needs to start finding their way around, especially now that Paige is not going to be in the picture of helping her or Mandy Rose. So I think this is good overall. I'm pretty happy with the result of this. I think really, though, the most you get out of this is that final part where you have Alexa helping out, someone who she kind of was down on for a minute there.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of damage to that relationship, so it's going to be very interesting to sort of see how Alexa tries to worm her way out of that, and if Nia gets jealous. I think that's another interesting thing you should probably keep an eye on as well. So
yeah, for sure.
Now to kick it over to the big storyline outside of the chamber, and that is, of course, the relationship between Seth Rollins and Jason Jordan. They have their tag team title match rematch tonight that we learn. And Rollins is backstage with Jordan, and they're talking about all these injuries that Jordan has. And they mostly talk about the blow to the head he took at the Royal Rumble. And Rollins is like, look, man, this is our last shot. Are you sure you're ready? And Jordan's like, 100% ready to go, all this other stuff. And we end up cutting to later in the evening, and we learn that Jason Jordan has been taken out of the tag match, and that Seth will now team with Roman Reigns in the tag team title match against the Bar. 14 minutes or so. This ends up ending in a DQ as Reigns tags in, starts going on a roll, and Jason Jordan sort of ends up stopping the Bar from leaving and attacks him and forces the DQ to allow the Bar to retain. And let's talk about the match first before we go any further with the story here, because this is actually pretty good. I still like how they work Jordan into all this too, where he's still sort of in the background trying, like, go Rollins, yay Seth, and then he's still, getting involved, trying to make sure his buddy wins. It's really, really, I don't want to say subversive, because I don't think that's the right word here, but, the subtlety of his heelness playing into all this, I think is really cool.
I think so. The only thing that really, and maybe this is just me thinking out of the line or something, I didn't understand exactly why you're stoked that your tag team partner is going to go out there and be with his basically other old tag team partner and going for the titles. After they win the titles, you're no longer in the picture. So that heel suddenly comes into place, right? So maybe you kind of understand why he came out there and why he did it. But it's just so weird to me because he acts like he has some empathy. Maybe that's part of this. Maybe that's and I hope you're right on that. I hope they don't stretch this out so far where it doesn't. But it's just you saw his smile, right? He smiled when he saw Roman Reigns, and I thought to myself, why the smile? I would think it's sure subtle, but you would think he'd just be kind of like looking at him and then watching him walk off. But maybe it's so subtle, Paul. We're not supposed to get it this early. I think just maybe some of us who kind of follow this really closely do. But I think a majority of people are smart. They're figuring this thing out. I don't know. I'm going way too long for something that's simple. I enjoyed it too, but at first I was kind of not sure about it. In the end, I think I am.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan's sort of two-faced, and he's been two-faced for a little while. He's still putting on the act that he's still this caring son to Kurt Angle that's just, this white meat good guy, and really he's just trying to do anything he can to keep hanging around with these guys. Because obviously his dad and all these other people he's on the roster with are casting some pretty long shadows that he is not ready for. And that might be implying a whole lot, but I think the way a lot of the stuff has played out over the last couple months at least sort of points to that. And of course, maybe they're trying to go a little bit more subtle with all this too because of his injury situation. Still trying to figure out exactly what he's going to do with this neck injury that has apparently become pretty severe now, and getting comparisons to what Chris Benoit and Edge suffered before they had to go get surgery, which kept them on the shelf for long periods of time. We're talking up to a year.
Yeah. Oof. And I sure hope that's not the case with what we got here with Jason Jordan. I really don't. Because I think it's going to really hurt that payoff. Mm-hmm. Especially if they wanted people to still care. And I'm loving this. If this is going to be something where we'll get to it sooner than later, especially if it's a Mania time. Like I said, I think I kind of feel bad because I think I just said people didn't figure. I think a lot of people do see this. I think just at first, if people are like me, and just me in particular, at first I didn't think this made sense until later. Mm-hmm. And so my feelings coming in were not like, oh, this is great. I get it. He's going to be a heel here. At first I was just kind of like, did that make any sense? I didn't. And so later on, I'm very happy with what we got here because I feel like it's something that's really a storyline you can really sink your teeth into. And we've talked about this almost every Raw that we've done since they've started this.
Right.
But I'm so happy, Paul, that they're continuing it. They're not making it slow down or putting hiccups in it. It feels very fluid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. The story sort of flows pretty well, I think. Jordan's sort of slowly turning to this side of himself has been pretty interesting to watch, in my opinion. And this sort of blows up backstage. You have Jason and Seth arguing. Kurt Angle shows up and is like, look, Jason, go home, stay there until you are healthy and cleared, and you can come back and actually wrestle, because you getting involved like this is obviously just getting in the way of what we're trying to accomplish outside there in that ring. So Jason gets all dejected and walks off.
Mm-hmm. And this is part of what I love, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is some of the stuff that I'm really down with because, you did have Jason Jordan say, you can't let him talk to me like that. And then he just yells at him, go home.
Yeah.
So, this is the pinnacle point of could we see this heel turn all of a sudden just jump into hyperdrive? Or could we have Jason Jordan coming out and being sheepish again and saying, look, I'm sorry, I screwed up. And then we slowly get back into the groove again. So I don't know. We'll see how it works out. Let's also see how long Jason Jordan is off TV. I hope it is not a year like you were talking about earlier. But, that'd be terrible.
He's apparently looking into other solutions that are non-surgical. So if it's like stopgaps to try to get him to stay around until Mania so they can pay this thing off, then maybe that's great. Although I wonder if maybe they shouldn't take a page out of the NXT book and Ciampa took this big injury, you had this turn percolating. Maybe you have Jordan do it sooner, do the attack, and then he gets taken off screen, so sort of retreats because, Daddy's not proud of his prodigy anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And then if you do take him off for that length of time, mm-hmm. when he does come back around, if it's a year, it's closer to WrestleMania a year from now, I think it would make for a big surprise him attacking Seth Rollins or anyone else involved. And, even if Kurt Angle's still around as GM or whatever they have him doing, he could also make an appearance and say, hey, I can't believe you're doing this. So.
Right, exactly. So that, I think, takes care of the bigger business items on our itinerary today, so we can start looking at some of the smaller stuff here. I should mention there's going to be a second chance match for all the people who have lost in the Elimination Chamber qualifiers for the men's matches, which, of course, is Finn Balor, Matt Hardy, Apollo Crews, and Bray Wyatt. Clearly, one of these things is not like the other. I think it's pretty obvious who's getting that last spot.
I think so too, but it's nice to see everybody get an opportunity to get that second chance, right? Mm-hmm. So, but yes, I think it's very apparent.
Absolutely, yeah. So, we have the Revival show up earlier in the evening. They want a tag team match tonight because they are, quote, tag team specialists. This gets them Finn Balor and Carl Anderson with Luke sort of hanging out at ringside. They end up falling to Finn. This is fine, right? Finn's clearly on the other level, and I don't know if I necessarily approve of this sort of coming at the Revival taking a loss here. But I understand you got to push Finn and keep him looking strong, especially after taking that loss to lose out of the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us guys who really like the Revival, we followed them for quite a while. You know, we follow them from NXT, and then we get here, and they have the injury situation, and now they're getting back into the groove, and they're really kind of 50-50, right? They're not winning or losing any more than they are. It's just 50-50 booking, and I think it bothers you for the fact that you do like them, and I do as well, but I think they're in the same situation that you got the Balor Club involved in with Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, because those guys as well have not really been able to kind of break out and do anything super strong, like, you know, run with the titles or anything like that. So these guys are keeping each other preoccupied, I think, for the moment being. Not too concerned. I think the Revival are going to evolve. I think when we start to see them on a win streak is when they could possibly be getting those tag titles. And I really hope that's the end game here, because I like Gallows and Anderson, and I would love to see them eventually be tag title, the Raw Tag Team Champions. But I think the Revival, as young as they are and as much charisma and potential that they have, I think those guys would wear the hardware and really hold it strong. I hope that's the direction they're going. They're just biding their time till they can get the bar past some of this other stuff that they're going through with, of course, you know, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns.
Yeah, I mean, you have so many face teams on Raw right now, too. The Revival winning just makes sense down the long road. At least this year, unless you have some fresh meat come up. So I like the idea of them winning those titles sooner rather than later, and then you have a ton of feud opportunities. So,
and you knew tonight they weren't going to beat Finn Balor. I mean, let's just be honest.
Exactly.
Especially for what we're talking about with that second chance, right? So they're not beating Finn Balor. I think overall, though, we still got a decent match out of these guys, which I'm very happy with.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's good work. It's just, you know, you're kind of a little sad. Revival losing to somebody who don't usually tag also might be something that sticks in some people's craw, too.
Yeah.
For the usual 205 Live check-in, we have Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali taking on Drew Gulak and Tony Nese. Spud, now known as Drake Maverick, who is the 205 Live GM, is on commentary hyping up the Cruiserweight title tournament. The faces end up winning out here against Gulak and Nese in a little bit over 4 minutes, with Cedric hitting the lumbar check for the big victory. I like this. I think Drake did a good job on commentary, too. I don't know if this is necessarily going to want to make you check into 205 Live, although the landscape is very different now since Enzo has gone, so maybe that's worth it. But, you know, last week was pretty good. Both the title qualifier matches were incredible.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think, you know, if you're listening to this right now and you still really are not sure about 205 Live, go check out that episode last week. Really see what we're hoping for, we're getting in the future. And I think we very much could. I mean, I think that they're really wanting people to check in. They're really trying to find a new way. And that's, hey, adding this new GM, Drake Maverick, I think is a big stepping stone in that realm of getting them better, getting them up the ladder and to being a product that people are going to want to tune into, want to buy the network so they can go see it. Let's hope it really does happen that way. But I think you're right. To me, the match was fine. It was great because, you know, you had some great athletes involved in this match. And, you know, I love the fact that Cedric sold the shoulder injury the entire time and then got back in and won the match here. And that's good. Very positive. But I think I will have to say I was most entertained by listening to Drake Maverick and everything he said and just kind of listening and kind of seeing if he's that old guy from, well, we call it Impact now, from, you know, back in TNA, that we really enjoyed watching and listening to. I think he did just as good as he ever did. I think he felt very comfortable on that commentary team. And I also liked some of the interactions, especially with Corey. I think it was Corey Graves, or no, his coach. I think someone said it. He goes, basically, "Are you calling me short?" I loved that. That was a nice moment. So it's obvious. I think Drake Maverick's going to be a great GM. I'm really looking forward to that. I think he was one of the highlights here. But yeah, decent stuff here for the 205 Live crew.
Absolutely. And that does it for all of the stuff happening on this episode of Raw. We just got to rate it, Gary. What you going to give it?
Overall, it was not a bad episode of Raw. I don't know that I would say it was extremely strong Raw, though. I think they did give us a lot of time with, actually just wrestling matches. Very little when it came to just people standing around and talking or just having some conversations. If not wrong, we kind of just got Sasha and Bayley and their little talkie segment, and you got, Elias doing his thing, which is normal. But outside of that, really, they focused on the matches and they told the stories that way for the most part. So I was really happy with that, but still not overly excited about some of this. I think we get a 6.5. I think it was an okay show, but not my, top-notch Raw show that I would say.
I wouldn't say it's top-notch either. You do get a lot of wrestling on here. Most of it is actually, I would say, good to very good. I don't know if there's anything super standout on here, but you do get some good wrestling. I think the storytelling that they did on this show was quality, especially with Alexa Bliss and that whole women's Elimination Chamber fiasco they got going on over there, as well as with Jason Jordan. You just sort of have a lot of holdover stuff of building up to the actual Elimination Chamber match, which I appreciate, right? It's a big deal. You're going to go fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for that Universal title. It should mean a lot. So, I think you nailed it. If the wrestling on here, I might have been a little better. I might go 7. But for what we got and everything else, I think I'm going to go 6.5 too.
Well, there you go, folks. So we kind of agree on this rating, which, hey, it's kind of fun when we agree and really fun when we disagree. So I think it's definitely a great episode to go check out, though. I know we didn't give a super high rating, but I think that, once again, lots of good wrestling here. Definitely something that if you've not had a chance to check out and you just listened to us kind of talk about it, go to WWE.com, go on their YouTube channel, check out some of these matches. It's definitely worth your time. So, but yeah, there you go, guys. If we want to let you guys know about anything else, I've got to tell you, it's the W2Mnet.com. And the reason I talk about that all the time is because not only do you get all our great review shows and the Wrestling of the Max shows, but you get a lot of other great content when it comes to the world of wrestling, as well as football. We all got to enjoy Super Bowl 52. And if you want to hear more about it, hey, guess what? Sean and Eric did a great job right after the game of covering it on Football of the Max. Go check them out. Plus, the ending of the show is hilarious. I'm not going to spoil it, not going to break it. I'm going to let you guys go check it out. It is too funny. Please go check out Football to the Max and the Kickoff, which will be happening later this week. Those guys are awesome too. They'll be having a lot of fun talking about, of course, that big game, Super Bowl 52, and getting into all of that, entails with that stuff. So go check out the Kickoff this week. And of course, all of our other great wrestling shows and sports shows. And we also have video games and entertainment. Too much to even talk about here because you guys will be here all night, me talking about it. Just go to W2Mnet.com, go check it out. Subscribe to the W2M Network to get everything I just talked about. If you just want to hear us, go subscribe at Wrestling of the Max. Mm-hmm. And also, don't forget to go to 411mania.com and lastwordonprowrestling.com. They have great content as well. We support them and they support us, so please go check them out. And I think that pretty much rounds us out for tonight. So, hey, one last thing. Wrestling of the Max episode 285 part 1 will be coming your way. Please go check that out. We've got some really cool stuff to talk about there too. So just a really quick shout out there. So of course I am Gary Vaughan. He is Paul Leazar, and we'll catch you guys down the road.
Have a good one, guys.
The previous podcast is a W2Mnet.com original podcast. For more great content like this, go to W2Mnet.com. For the worlds of wrestling, video games, entertainment, and sports.